Good morning. Welcome back to Banter and Beans. We've got another show on tap for you this morning, and Pat is going to share with us the details on H397. And this is the flood response bill, right, Pat?
Yes, right. And we had just done a show before this, and we were talking about how many miscellaneous bills there are.
The
A lot
Christmas
of
tree
the
bills, right?
Yeah, a lot of the departments, like when I was in DMV, every year we had a miscellaneous bill, and as Ben just said, everybody called it the Christmas tree bill because by the end of the session, things were tacked onto those bills. Like, where did they get that? They're always interesting. And I picked the emergency management and flood response bill because I really thought this session that we were going to be overrun with bills about emergency management and flood response, and we weren't. And I was very surprised about that. Um, as a matter of fact, Ben was doing a bill on education, and they put a hold on two bills that I would have thought would have gone through quickly, having to do with active shooter and just a plan for emergencies. But
Yeah, the
this,
emergency response plan for schools.
yeah,
Yeah.
just surprised me. So this is Act 57, or the bill went through the session on H397. And you know that once the governor signs the bill into law, it gets assigned an act number. And another quick thing, if you ever ask for, say, Act 57, you've got to include the year, because Act 57 has appeared over the years in a specific year. So you've got to make sure you've got the right bill for the right year. It took me a while to figure that one out when I was researching. But anyway, this bill is about miscellaneous amendments to the statutes governing emergency management and flood response. And it's got to do with internal security, public safety, emergency management, and flood response, and the new word resilience. We are resilient. I love that word, actually.
Resilient.
That's the new
Actually, I
word.
like that word too, and we'll get into why in a little bit.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So this act, as I said, it just adds some miscellaneous bills and miscellaneous amendments. And I'm going to go down the list because it's quite interesting. It requires the Division of Emergency Management to annually report to the General Assembly. We always have to have reports in bills. It's important. And this is concerning all action items in the All Hazard Mitigation Plan, and to consult with relevant stakeholders before adopting the state emergency management plan. And I looked up both the all hazardous mitigation plan and state emergency management plan, and it's very interesting if you want to go online and read those plans. It's really enlightening, and seems to me they've covered pretty much everything you could possibly imagine. They're very well written plans. I was very impressed. The bill also authorizes the division to provide grants from the Community Resilience and Disaster Mitigation Fund for voluntary buyouts of flood impact of prone properties when they buy out houses that there's just no saving them. They just brought down to nothing and then rebuild, or in many cases move somewhere else to buy a new home, because some of these houses have just keep getting hit, and I'm not sure how much I'd want to go back, but people get stuck and they don't have much choice. Um, so and there's another statement that says authorize the division to provide grants from the Community Resilience and Disaster Mitigation Fund for, again, voluntary buyouts of property. There's also funding to assist municipalities with access to certain all hazard and weather alert systems. That is something that's been in the news, about weather alert systems in some of these states that have been hit with.
Yeah, like the Texas one, the Texas flooding, the emergency
Yeah,
alert system was not fast enough to get people out of the
yeah,
way in
that's
time.
scary. You would think if you know that you know you're going to have some kind of weather, you always have weather, and
Yes.
you should be able to know what's coming at you. Um, and then it requires the division to submit a needs assessment to the General Assembly on or before November 15th, 2025. So before next session, they'll have a needs assessment. Authorize municipalities to transfer unexpected dedicated funds to an unassigned fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. They just want to collect all of the funding that was not used and to have it available if it's continued to be needed. There are some people that still haven't gotten funding for their houses, I understand.
I've heard
Um,
that too. Yeah.
yeah, and it's been a while. They should be that should be settled, I would think. Another one
Well, and
was
there's some
offered.
concern there too about like for future floods, right? Because FEMA just got a bunch of funding cut, and so there's some
Yep.
questions about, is FEMA going to be able to provide the same level of support that they have in previous floods
Oh,
if we see
really?
something like, yeah, we've seen in the past, so like
I
Irene
mean,
or the floods from a couple of years ago.
oh yeah, the one that was really hit us the most was Tropical Storm Irene, right? That was just
Irene is the big
devastation.
one, yeah.
I couldn't believe that. I rode down to Rutland shortly after, a couple of days later, to go to a meeting, and I could not believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Everything was gray. The whole where I was on by Route 4, everything was covered in this gray soot or gray dirt or something. It was something out of a movie. I was
Yeah,
really,
I was driving back from New Hampshire during that storm, and I
oh my
remember how like
God.
crazy it was, and then I also drove down through like I happened to drive down through Woodstock and Killington shortly after,
Yeah,
and
bad.
yeah, same thing. It was
Yeah,
like
I
just
was
the
I was
amount of
on this
devastation.
this great dirt road, all everything gray, and I was by myself, and I kept thinking that at some point the road is just going to not be there because where are the people? I was it,
Yeah.
and I was driving very slowly as I thought something bad was up ahead. All right, let's continue. So another amendments authorize municipal legislative bodies to choose to repay bonded debt in substantially level payments. Authorize the governor in consultation with the Secretary of Natural Resources to waive applicable permits related to the drawdown of a dam with an approved drawdown plan, provided that the director of the Division of Emergency Management has reason to believe that authorizing an advanced drawdown will decrease the risk of substantial damage. That was a little confusing to me, I will tell you.
So
What did we
the
say?
the I think what they're talking about is the flood mitigation dams, not necessarily the water storage dams.
Yeah,
So, there's usually a reservoir of some sort behind those flood mitigation dams, and they're
right.
gonna keep the water level at a certain level just to try to stabilize the river system.
Oh,
But if the water level behind the dam is too high, then your capacity is low, right? Because what you don't want is have a big storm come through and then it's coming over the top of the
right.
dam, right? Or it
Yeah.
collapses the dam. Like that would be a catastrophic event. So I think what they're talking about is like municipalities having the ability to proactively drop the water level behind the dam if they think that a big storm could impact them.
Okay, so this gives them a permission with a permit to actually deal with the water level to mitigate any flooding.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so like that, so for example, they know a big storm is coming and they can start dropping the water level proactively a couple days ahead of that storm, but they need the space to do that.
Yeah, huh. They were talking about using, down where I live, the AOT garage,
Hmm.
that's moving. And they were thinking of using that as a water spill area where because it's always flooding down by the transportation department, that they would use that to capture water.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty interesting just to watch that if they're going to do that.
I think we need to start getting creative about how we manage our waterways.
Yeah,
Because we know that like in the spring in particular, we're going to see more and more moisture coming down
right.
as climate change happens. All the predictions that are that it's going to, at least initially, going to be warmer and wetter. And we're gonna have more severe thunderstorms, which is what's done the damage the last couple of years. It's not
Right.
hurricanes, it's not tropical storms, it's like just big thunderstorms that are dumping a couple inches of rain an hour, and that's enough to overwhelm our current systems, our current
Yeah.
infrastructure, and
Well, I know the water when we were in Maine, the water just saturated the ground. There wasn't
yeah,
another room for one more drop, and then we had all the flooding
yeah,
because
the
the
water
water,
table is coming
yeah,
right up. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. So we Campaign for Vermont did a poll in November of 2023. So this was actually in between the two flooding events. If you
Uh-huh.
remember, there was the big flood
Right. Right.
in the July of 2023, and there was another one in
Right.
July of 2024. So it was in between the two flooding events, and we had done a poll, and we were asking Vermonters, opinions on climate change and how the state should be responding to climate change. And we asked this question, you know, like when it comes to everything going on with threats to the environment, climate change, carbon reduction efforts, and the Paris Climate Accords, um, what do you think the bigger priority should be in Vermont? And we gave the options of, adopting the Paris Climate Accord policies and reducing carbon emissions. Should that be the focus, or should the focus be on addressing the local effects of climate change by investing more in things like flood prevention,
Right.
um, preserving our natural environment and habitats, and maintaining clean air and water?
I bet I know
And
what they voted for.
what do you think? What do you think that
Number two.
they said? They did
Yeah.
say number two, and it was surprisingly strong.
Yeah.
So only 12% of respondents said that we should chase carbon emissions alone.
Huh.
So that and only 12% of Vermonters said that that was the
Yeah.
priority.
Yeah.
Um, 72% said that we
Mm.
should be addressing the local impacts of climate change. That should be the focus of state government.
Right.
Um, and 16% were undecided. So there was actually more people undecided in the poll than
There must.
thought that we should chase
Yeah.
carbon emissions alone. And that, I think, that would probably change if we asked about the federal government or whatever. But I think that is a good example of where Vermonters are at in their headspace, is like they want state government to focus on solving the impacts of climate change and also making
Yeah.
sure that we are doing our part to keep our environment clean, and it's, carbon emissions aside. And, one of the things for me that really gets me is, I am out on Lake Champlain almost every weekend during the summer, and the Vermont side of the lake is terrible now. Like within the last, I've been out on the lake for 25 years, and it used to be that it was a clean lake. You could swim anywhere, no problems. Now you have to be really careful about where you swim because there could be algae that's producing neurotoxins that can impact you. And so beaches are closed and the water is disgusting.
Huh.
Um, and on top of that, you have invasive species like milfoil that is
Milfoil.
proliferating because of the
Right.
excess phosphorus in the water, and zebra mussels are moving into places that they never used to be. So like, we're and then you go to and that's just the Vermont side, and you go to the New York side, and you're like, they've got beautiful beaches and the water is clear, and it's like we are not holding up our part of the bargain here, and the EPA agrees with that. They're like, New York does not have a discharge problem into Lake Champlain. Vermont absolutely does. We are the problem, and it's apparent when you spend time on the Vermont side of the lake and then you go spend time on the New York side of the lake. We almost can't even You almost can't even get in the water on the Vermont side anymore. It's like that
That
bad.
shocks me. I haven't been over there in like years, but we have every year the feds threaten us with coming in and taking over and cleaning up the water. I thought we were spending bazillion bucks trying
We
to
are
clean that up.
spending, yeah, we're spending tens of millions of dollars, and
What's happening?
we're not seeing the results for it. Like we need to start holding state government accountable
For
for
sure.
our failures, quite honestly, because we are trashing our environment.
Because
We're
that is
trashing our
such a
waterways.
huge economic impact, that Lake Champlain, to us as a state. I mean, we rely on people using that lake for our economy.
Yeah,
I don't
and travel
understand what we're
guides are
doing.
starting to say avoid it now.
Oh,
Like literally, travel guides are saying don't visit Lake Champlain. It's dangerous.
oh my. Why isn't somebody, or are they, and I'm missing it, yelling and screaming?
I don't know. I think that, the climate activists are more focused on, carbon emissions and,
Oh my God, get
they're
real.
getting paid by energy lobbyists to
Right.
focus on that. So like that's where they're focusing. And
Huh.
in the meantime, we're like missing this bigger picture thing that's happening in our backyards that we're doing.
That seems like a topic for campaign for Vermont, I would say.
Feels
I'm
like it,
I'm
doesn't it?
getting yanked up just listening to this. And then of course we have the wake boat discussion that
Yeah,
would
which is
add
a
to
whole
it.
other thing.
Yeah,
That
right.
can stir up phosphorus too if they're in too
Yeah,
shallow water and the draft of they can stir phosphorus, pull it off
yeah.
the bottom of the lake, and
Because you can't clean out the ballast sufficiently enough to stop transporting
yeah,
milfoil and other things over to other lakes. All right,
zebra
let me.
mussels, spiny water fleas, like all kinds of stuff.
And one of those, the blue algae, don't they? They have pictures of killing dogs. If the dogs
Yeah,
eat
it can
that, they
kill
die.
dogs and
I
it can
mean,
make
good
kids
grief.
sick and like all kinds of stuff. And they produce a neurotoxin. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's not good.
Oh my word. All right, let us continue on with our bill H 397. So there's says make minor amendments to the statute related to the Division of Emergency Management to align the official title. Oh, this is an important one, to align the official title of the division throughout Vermont statutes. So they've obviously changed the name of the division and they want to reflect it in statute. That's important. Add a section to the Administrative Procedures Act to ensure that federal regulations that are incorporated by reference in Vermont statute agency rules, lots of technical jargon coming, and what they want to do is make our legislation reflective of the federal legislation, make them both say the same thing. And then
Oh,
provide
in terms
education,
of runoff.
right?
Yeah.
And then it says provide educational property tax overpayment refunds. This is to the city of Barry and the town of Milton. I found the next two things are specific to the city of Barry and the town of Milton, which I found very interesting that they included such specificity in a miscellaneous bill.
Yeah.
So I don't know why Barry and the town of Milton,
Um,
they're overpayment of tax and they need to get refunds, which is a good thing.
I think this is related to properties that were damaged in flooding,
Oh,
and the towns were are still charging them on the previous value of the property, and obviously the
oh, well,
property
that
had
makes sense.
devalued when it got damaged by the
Yep.
floods. So I think that's what it was dealing with.
Huh. That I think you are right, because that makes sense. And then the last one of this bill is extend the expiration of the city of Barry, authorized to incur debt for the city's TIF district. And they were talking about supporting the TIF districts, which is, and now they have a smaller version of TIFs called
Yeah.
CAP, which I
Uh,
found very, CAP, is that the name of it?
no, it's not. It's not cap.
Oh,
It's something else.
yeah, something else.
We talked about it in the housing bill. I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it's
Oh, chip.
excellent.
It's chip.
Chip. Oh, I was close, Cap Chip.
Yeah,
Chip,
you were
that's right.
close.
I had Representative Higley on the show the other day, and he was very involved in that and talking about it, which makes a lot of sense. If you don't have a big area, you've just got a little one you want to improve.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
this,
project specific instead of a whole geographic
right,
area.
and which I think makes a lot of sense, especially for smaller towns. We don't have the kind of projects that Barry City would have or Montpelier. So that's my bill. I was just like a bill that you recently reviewed where they didn't act quickly on two things I thought were having to do with safety of our children in
Yeah,
school,
so the
but
big picture thing here
what
is what did they actually do on water quality and flood
Zippo,
mitigation? Like what did they actually fix?
nothing.
Yeah.
When you That's why I took this bill up, because I thought, oh, they must have done something really, really monumental. And I'm reading, and I wasn't even going to report on it, but then I thought, no, they've got to know nothing was nothing was done. I just, maybe we missed something in the review, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah. And
This was
that's
the only
the
one that had the word flood in it.
yeah, and that I think is right. That's the takeaway is that there's very little they did except for nibble around the edges,
Right.
and this was the flood mitigation bill for this year. Yeah, so
I hope that they think about it a little bit more seriously, because not one of these things really does anything to change anything.
No.
I
And we
just,
already talked about like where Vermonters are at, right? This is
yep,
what they want state
right,
government to be focusing on, and not like, the clean heat standard or something like, or a, carbon tax on
right.
fuels. Like they want state government to be focusing on this kind of thing, and the legislature keeps missing the ball.
Well, I thought for sure that after the flood, we would see everywhere changing smaller culverts into larger culverts, and so that it could take on the capacity better than the smaller ones. Nope, don't see anything like that floating
The
around
only
here.
thing I see in this bill that's helpful, quite honestly, is the flood management dam policy to allow
Really, that's
municipalities to drop.
interesting.
I think that's the only thing I see in this bill that's actually really truly helpful in terms of mitigating the damage of a flooding event.
Now you refer to it as a reservoir. Is the Waterbury, it says Waterbury Reservoir, is that an example of a
That
dam?
one's it is a dam. It's definitely a dam, but that one's not a flood control dam necessarily. It
Oh,
is a power generation dam.
ah,
So
and
generating
where
power.
would a controlled dam be? Do you know? I really want to look into this. This is
Uh
interesting.
the North Branch Dam in Montpelier is the one that I'm familiar
Oh,
with because they were worried about that one
yes, that's
overflowing.
right. They were talking about that forever.
Yes,
Oh,
they
I'll
were
have to
worried
look
about
at
that
that.
North Branch Dam overflow, and that is a flood control dam. It's specifically meant to protect downtown
Well, I'm
Montpelier.
going to go check it out. I'll report back
Yeah, let us know.
because that's pretty interesting. Well,
All
thank
right,
you
well, we
very
are out of
much.
time for today, Pat. Thank you so much
Yep,
for sharing this bill with
thank
us,
you.
and we'll keep tuned because hopefully the legislature does something a little more meaningful
They
in the
better,
coming years.
right? Especially about Lake Champlain. I'm on this.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a passionate one for me as well.
Right.
So, till next time,
Yeah.
keep following us, and we will keep covering what's brewing in
Yeah.
Vermont.
And let us know if there's anything specific you'd like to hear. We'll be glad to respond.